Evil is a word we often throw around carelessly, assigning it to people, actions, or even entire ideologies that contradict our values or harm us in some way. But to call someone evil is to make a profound statement, one that demands careful reflection. This label implies something fixed, something innate, as if the person in question is irredeemable, their essence permanently dark. Yet the truth is far more complex, far less binary. What we call evil is rarely a static identity. It is more often a manifestation of inner discord, misalignment, or pain expressed outwardly in destructive ways. To understand this, we must first question the very nature of labels. Words like evil are tools for communication meant to encapsulate complex realities into digestible forms. They are not truths in themselves, but symbols pointing toward deeper phenomena. When we label someone as evil, we risk oversimplifying their humanity, reducing them to a caricature rather than acknowledging their full, messy reality. The danger here is twofold. Not only do we fail to see them clearly, but we also close ourselves off to understanding the forces that led them to act as they did. Consider this: every person is the sum of their experiences, choices, and inner struggles. No one is born with an unchangeable moral alignment. Instead, we are shaped by the interplay of our environments, our traumas, and our capacity, or lack thereof, to process them constructively. When someone commits acts we deem evil, it is often the outward expression of unresolved inner turmoil. They may be consumed by fear, anger, or a profound sense of disconnection from others and themselves. These forces distort their perception of the world, driving them to harm, manipulate, or destroy in an attempt to regain some semblance of control. This does not excuse harmful actions or mean we should tolerate destructive behavior. Accountability is essential. However, labeling someone as evil without looking deeper can blind us to the possibility of change. People are not static beings. They are dynamic, constantly in flux, capable of both great harm and profound transformation. The same person who caused immense suffering yesterday may, under the right circumstances, seek to heal and make amends tomorrow. But to see this potential requires us to look beyond the surface, beyond the label. There is also a certain danger in using the term evil too freely. It creates a dichotomy where none truly exists, us versus them, good versus bad. This division feeds into the illusion that we are fundamentally separate from those we judge. In reality, the line between good and evil does not divide people. It runs through every human heart. Each of us carries the potential for both kindness and cruelty, depending on the choices we make and the circumstances we face. When we label others as evil, we risk projecting our own shadows onto them, denying the parts of ourselves we fear to confront. Moreover, the act of labeling can become a way to absolve ourselves of responsibility. If someone else is evil, then the problem lies entirely with them, and we are free from the need to reflect on our own actions or complicity. This absolution is comforting but false. The dynamics of harm and healing are always relational. To address the presence of evil in our world, we must also examine the systems and interactions that allow it to thrive. Ultimately, to label someone as evil is to fall into the illusion of simplicity in a world that is anything but simple. It is to judge a tree by its bitter fruit without considering the soil, the roots, or the storms it has weathered. Instead of clinging to such labels, let us strive to understand, to seek the causes behind the actions we abhor, and to remember that even in the darkest of hearts there may yet be a spark waiting to be rekindled. For in understanding lies the power not just to condemn, but to transform. Human relationships are a constant dance of revealing and concealing. We show parts of ourselves while hiding others, and this interplay is often harmless, even necessary. Yet there are those who use this dynamic to their advantage in deeply harmful ways. These individuals, cloaked in masks and armed with mirrors, manipulate perception to control and deceive. Recognizing such people requires a keen eye, for they thrive on illusions and deflections that make them appear trustworthy or even admirable. A mask in this context is not just a metaphor, but a deliberate facade. These masks are crafted to appeal to others, tailored to fit the expectations, desires, or fears of those they interact with. The mask of kindness, for instance, may disguise an agenda of self-interest, while the mask of competence might hide a foundation of insecurity or deceit. These personas are rarely static. Like actors on a stage, these individuals change their masks depending on their audience, adapting to gain trust or exert influence. Yet masks are only half the equation. The mirror is the more insidious tool. While a mask hides their true nature, the mirror reflects back to you an image you want or fear to see. If you are desperate for validation, they will reflect admiration, becoming the person who understands and appreciates you like no one else. If you are vulnerable or insecure, they might reflect judgment or disapproval, playing on your fears to control you. The mirror creates an illusion that they are either exactly what you need or someone you cannot afford to displease. This dual strategy of masks and mirrors is what makes such individuals so difficult to identify. They do not present themselves as obvious villains. Instead, they blend in, often appearing more charming, capable, or empathetic than others around them. Their true nature is revealed not in their words, but in their patterns of behavior. It is in the inconsistencies, the small cracks in their facade, that the truth begins to emerge. One of the most telling signs is the gap between what they say and what they do. While their words may paint a picture of integrity or goodwill, their actions often reveal a different story. They may promise loyalty but betray confidences, express concern while secretly undermining you, or offer help with strings attached. These inconsistencies are not always obvious at first. They rely on subtlety and misdirection to avoid detection. Another key indicator is the way they handle conflict or accountability. When confronted, they rarely admit fault. Instead, they may deflect blame, turning the focus back onto you or others. They might accuse you of misunderstanding them or suggest that your concerns are unwarranted, leaving you doubting your own perceptions. This tactic, often referred to as gaslighting, is a powerful way to maintain control by distorting your sense of reality. Their use of mirrors also reveals itself in their relationships. You may notice that their interactions seem tailored to each individual, with little consistency in how they treat people. To one person, they might be a confidant to another, an authority figure to yet another, a helpless victim. These roles are not genuine but calculated, designed to extract what they need from each relationship, be it admiration, loyalty, or resources. The danger of dealing with such individuals is not just in their deceit, but in the way they erode your own sense of self. By constantly shifting their masks and holding up distorted mirrors, they create an environment of uncertainty. You may find yourself questioning your instincts, doubting your judgments, or feeling as though you are the one at fault. This erosion of confidence is deliberate. It keeps you off balance, making it easier for them to maintain control. To navigate such relationships, one must learn to see beyond the masks and shatter the mirrors. This requires patience and a willingness to trust your own observations. Look for patterns rather than isolated incidents, and pay attention to how their actions align with their words. Trust your instincts if something feels off, and do not hesitate to seek outside perspectives from those you trust. Ultimately, the key to recognizing such individuals lies in understanding their tactics. Masks and mirrors may obscure the truth, but they cannot alter it. By staying grounded in your own sense of reality and refusing to be drawn into their illusions, you can protect yourself from their influence and see them for who they truly are. Power does not always announce itself with loud declarations or grand gestures. In fact, the most profound forms of influence often operate in the quiet spaces between words, in the actions that pass unnoticed, and in the whispers that echo long after they are spoken. This is the power of subtlety, a force that is often underestimated but capable of shaping relationships, environments, and outcomes in ways that are both profound and lasting. When dealing with individuals whose intentions are harmful or self-serving, understanding their use of subtlety is essential to recognizing and countering their influence. Subtlety, in the hands of a manipulative person, becomes a tool of control. It is not about outright domination or overt aggression, but about planting seeds that grow quietly and steadily. These seeds might take the form of a casually spoken word that undermines your confidence, a seemingly innocent action that sows doubt, or a gesture that conveys more than it appears. Unlike blatant forms of manipulation, these tactics often go unnoticed in the moment, slipping beneath the radar of your conscious awareness. One of the most common forms of subtlety is the art of suggestion. A manipulative individual may never directly tell you what to think or do. Instead, they will imply, hint, or pose questions that nudge you in a desired direction. For example, instead of accusing you outright, they might say, "Do you think it's possible you're overreacting?" This phrasing places the burden of doubt on you, leading you to question your own feelings or judgments without them having to make a direct claim. Over time, these suggestions can erode your confidence in your perceptions and decisions, leaving you more reliant on their guidance. Another powerful tactic is selective omission. Rather than lying outright, a subtle manipulator may simply withhold key information, presenting a partial truth that leads you to form conclusions beneficial to them. This technique is effective because it leverages your natural inclination to fill in gaps in understanding. By controlling the information you receive, they can shape your perception without ever stating anything untrue. Body language and tone of voice are also crucial tools in the arsenal of subtlety. A raised eyebrow, a slight pause, or a tone that implies disapproval can convey volumes without a single word being spoken. These nonverbal cues are especially potent because they bypass your logical defenses and resonate on an emotional level. You may find yourself feeling uneasy, uncertain, or even guilty without being able to pinpoint why. The subtle undermining of others is another hallmark of this power. A manipulative person might praise you in public while making a small joke at your expense, framing it as harmless fun. Or they might agree with you in principle, but add a feint, however, that casts doubt on your ideas. These moments are easily dismissed as trivial in isolation, but their cumulative effect can wear down your confidence and sense of worth. What makes subtlety so effective is its plausibility. Each individual action or statement, taken on its own, often seems reasonable or benign. It is only when viewed in context and over time that the true pattern of manipulation becomes clear. This ambiguity allows the manipulator to deny their intentions, claiming innocence or misunderstanding if confronted. The power of subtlety also lies in its ability to manipulate perception, not just of the victim but of those around them. A manipulative individual may behave differently depending on their audience, ensuring that others see them as charming, helpful, or misunderstood. This duality creates a situation where the victim may struggle to gain validation for their experiences, as others cannot reconcile the manipulator's public persona with the private harm they inflict. Recognizing the power of subtlety requires vigilance and self-trust. Pay attention to patterns, especially those that leave you feeling drained, uncertain, or diminished. Trust your instincts if something feels off, even if you cannot immediately articulate why. Surround yourself with people who support and validate your perspective, as this can counteract the isolating effects of subtle manipulation. Ultimately, subtlety is a double-edged sword. While it can be a tool of harm in the wrong hands, it also holds the potential for great good when used with integrity. It reminds us that power is not always loud or visible. By learning to see the quiet forces at work around us, we can better protect ourselves and wield our own influence with wisdom and care. Empathy, at its core, is a beautiful and necessary human quality. It allows us to connect with others, share in their experiences, and understand their emotions on a deep level. It is a bridge that fosters compassion and unity. However, like any powerful tool, empathy can be distorted and weaponized by those with harmful intentions. This manipulation of empathy is one of the most insidious tactics employed by individuals seeking control, as it preys on the very qualities that make us human and compassionate. The distortion of empathy begins with understanding its power. An empathetic person is naturally inclined to care, to listen, and to help. These qualities are virtues, but they also make a person vulnerable to exploitation. Someone who manipulates empathy knows how to evoke it selectively, using it not to build genuine connection but to serve their own ends. They become adept at presenting themselves as victims, crafting narratives that trigger your compassion and bypass your critical thinking. One of the most common ways empathy is distorted is through the creation of a false victimhood. A manipulative individual might exaggerate or fabricate their struggles to gain sympathy. They may present themselves as perpetually wronged or misunderstood, framing every conflict in a way that casts them as the aggrieved party. This narrative draws empathetic individuals into their orbit, compelling them to offer support, defend them, or even take on their battles. Over time, this dynamic creates a one-sided relationship where the manipulative person continually takes while giving little in return. Another form of distortion is the selective application of empathy. These individuals often show just enough empathy themselves to gain your trust and create a sense of reciprocity. For instance, they may offer a shoulder to cry on during a difficult moment, appearing deeply understanding and caring. But this empathy is not genuine, it is calculated. They use these moments to build emotional credit, expecting you to repay it tenfold when they need something. Their empathy is a tool, not a true expression of connection. The distortion extends to their ability to manipulate your feelings of guilt. Empathy, when twisted, becomes a means of control. A manipulative person may accuse you of being uncaring or selfish if you do not respond to their needs in the way they demand. They might say things like, "I thought you cared about me," or "if you really understood what I'm going through, you wouldn't act this way." These statements weaponize your empathy against you, creating a sense of obligation to prioritize their needs over your own. Perhaps most damaging is the way distorted empathy isolates you. By monopolizing your compassion, these individuals leave little room for you to consider your own feelings or needs. They may subtly discourage you from seeking support elsewhere, framing it as disloyal or unnecessary. This isolation deepens your dependence on them, as your emotional energy becomes entirely focused on their well-being. Over time, this dynamic can erode your sense of self, leaving you drained and disconnected. Recognizing the distortion of empathy requires a clear understanding of healthy boundaries. Empathy does not mean sacrificing yourself entirely for someone else, nor does it mean accepting every narrative at face value. True empathy involves discernment, the ability to care for others while also maintaining your own well-being. If you find that your empathy is being consistently exploited, it may be time to step back and reassess the relationship. One key to countering this manipulation is to pay attention to patterns. Ask yourself if the person consistently positions themselves as the victim, if their needs always seem to outweigh yours, or if they react negatively when you assert your boundaries. These are signs that your empathy may be being distorted. Another important step is to seek outside perspectives. A trusted friend or counselor can help you gain clarity, offering insights that may be difficult to see from within the relationship. Ultimately, the distortion of empathy is a betrayal of trust. It takes something inherently good and turns it into a means of control. But by understanding this tactic and staying grounded in your own sense of worth, you can protect yourself from such exploitation. Empathy is a gift, and when wielded wisely, it remains a force for healing and connection, even in the face of those who seek to misuse it. In the vast universe of human relationships, most people orbit around shared values, mutual respect, and collective well-being. However, there are individuals whose gravitational pull is entirely self-centered. These people act as the sun in their own universe, expecting others to revolve around them, their desires and their needs. This self-centered gravity is not merely an inflated ego, but a deep-rooted behavior pattern that distorts relationships, erodes trust, and leaves others drained and disoriented. A person driven by self-centered gravity tends to see the world as an extension of themselves. Every interaction, relationship, or event is measured by how it benefits or impacts them personally. They are often quick to take credit for successes, even those they did not contribute to, and equally swift to deflect blame for failures. Their perception is myopic, focused narrowly on their own interests, with little regard for the needs, feelings, or perspectives of others. This gravitational pull manifests in subtle yet pervasive ways. Conversations, for instance, are often dominated by their voice. They steer discussions back to their experiences, achievements, or problems, leaving little room for others to share. Even moments of celebration or mourning that belong to someone else are co-opted, as they find ways to insert themselves into the narrative. Their ability to make everything about themselves is not always overt, but can leave others feeling overshadowed or invisible. In their self-centered orbit, empathy and reciprocity are often conspicuously absent. While they expect unwavering support from others, they rarely offer the same in return. Their relationships tend to be transactional, with their efforts focused on what they can extract rather than what they can give. This imbalance leaves others feeling used and unvalued, as their needs are consistently overlooked or dismissed. The most damaging aspect of self-centered gravity is the way it distorts the emotional landscape of those around them. People caught in their orbit may begin to doubt their own worth, questioning whether their feelings or contributions matter. Over time, this can lead to a sense of helplessness or frustration, as attempts to address the imbalance are often met with defensiveness or dismissal. The self-centered individual may accuse others of being needy, ungrateful, or overly sensitive, turning the focus back on themselves and avoiding accountability. Despite their outward confidence, individuals with self-centered gravity often operate from a place of insecurity. Their need to dominate and control stems from a fear of vulnerability, a reluctance to acknowledge their own shortcomings, or a deep-seated belief that they are only as valuable as the attention they receive. This insecurity fuels their behavior, creating a cycle that is difficult to break without self-awareness and a willingness to change. Breaking free from the pull of self-centered gravity requires establishing clear boundaries. Recognize the patterns in their behavior and understand that their self-centeredness is not a reflection of your worth but of their own struggles. And learn to assert your needs and communicate your feelings without falling into the trap of their deflection or manipulation. Surround yourself with relationships that are balanced and reciprocal, where your value is acknowledged and appreciated. It is also important to approach these individuals with compassion, even as you maintain your boundaries. While their behavior may be harmful, it often stems from unresolved pain or unmet needs. Encouraging them to seek self-awareness or professional support can be a step toward change, though this is ultimately a journey they must choose for themselves. Self-centered gravity is a powerful force, but it is not unbreakable. By staying grounded in your own sense of self and refusing to be drawn entirely into their orbit, you can protect your well-being and foster healthier, more balanced connections. Relationships should be a shared dance, not a one-sided pull towards someone else's center. Recognizing this distinction is the first step toward navigating such dynamics with wisdom and care. Truth is often seen as a foundation, a guiding force that provides clarity and stability. Yet there are individuals who deliberately invert truth, twisting it into a tool for manipulation and control. This inversion is not merely the act of lying, but the deliberate reshaping of reality to serve their own ends. It is a subtle yet powerful distortion that leaves others questioning their own perceptions, eroding trust and creating a fog of confusion. At its core, the inversion of truth operates on a simple principle: if you can control the narrative, you can control perception. A manipulative person understands this deeply and uses it to their advantage. They take facts, emotions, or events and alter them just enough to shift their meaning. What is good becomes bad, what is harmful becomes justified, and what is real becomes suspect. This is done not in a way that is easily refuted, but in ways that feel plausible, sowing doubt in the minds of others. One of the most common tactics in this inversion is reframing. A manipulative individual might take an event or conversation and retell it in a way that benefits them. For example, if they were dismissive in an argument, they might later claim they were the ones who felt attacked, flipping the roles of victim and perpetrator. This reframing makes it difficult to challenge them without appearing defensive or combative, further reinforcing their version of events. Another tactic is selective truth-telling. They might present fragments of the truth while omitting crucial context, creating a narrative that supports their agenda. This partial honesty makes their story seem credible, even as it leads others away from the full picture. By controlling what information is revealed and what is hidden, they guide others to conclusions that align with their interests. Gaslighting is a particularly insidious form of truth inversion. Here, the manipulator actively denies or distorts another person's reality, making them doubt their own memory, perceptions, or sanity. This might involve outright denial of events that never happened, minimizing experiences you're overreacting, or suggesting that the other person is unreliable, you're imagining things. Over time, this constant erosion of confidence can leave the victim feeling powerless and dependent on the manipulator for their sense of reality.